My name is Aria Solis, 29 years old. I told myself all week that weddings are about the couple, not the collisions that families drag in like weather fronts, and if I stayed small enough, quiet enough, no one would notice the pressure drop around me. I curled my hair, did my makeup classy, chose heels that didn't scream, brought the thick white envelope with the check, and walked into that overpriced wedding barn where chandeliers hung like icicles over a vineyard fantasy and everyone spoke in champagne. I'd even kept my mouth shut when my mother texted me the venue address without a hello or can't wait to see you, because she never says please and she only pretends to like me when someone important is watching. I tried to be what they clearly never wanted me to be, invisible and agreeable, but they wouldn't even let me do that. A couple cousins I hadn't seen in years actually smiled and waved. One hugged me in a way that made my skin sting with memory and said, "Thank God you came." It almost made me think, maybe this wouldn't be a total disaster. Maybe tonight would pass like a rainstorm you watch through glass. I moved toward the check-in table, and the planner greeted me with a brittle smile and a big chart. And there it was, table 17, practically off the map. One seat, no plus one. Right next to the kitchen entrance where the door swung on a hinge like a metronome. I blinked, leaned in, blinked again. Nope. Table 17, Aria, one seat. Before I could ask, I felt it, the familiar temperature drop that arrives with her perfume. "You'll sit near the kitchen," my mother said quietly, like it made perfect sense. Closer to the staff. Her eyes didn't move. Her mouth barely did. When I didn't step away, she added, "Just be grateful you're even here." It was the same tone she used when I was 14 and brought home a science fair ribbon, the one that said, "Don't gloat, it's not becoming." I looked at her face and saw nothing but mild irritation that I hadn't obeyed fast enough. The fuse met the flame without a sound. I turned from her and walked to the gift table. My envelope was still there, unopened among pastel cards tied with satin, like promises people make to be seen doing goodness. I picked it up, slipped the check out, folded it once, tucked it into my purse. Then I pulled a $1 bill from my wallet, slid it into the envelope, sealed it, and set it back down with a gentle pat. As I walked away, past a cluster of Amanda's friends in blush dresses, I said, clearly enough to be carried by the chandeliered air, "Now it matches the respect I get." You can tell when a bomb lands by the sudden acoustics of a room. 10 minutes later, Amanda came marching toward me, bouquet clenched like a gavel, veil shifting in a panicked current. "Aria, are you serious? Did you just take back your gift?" A few people actually gasped. She wasn't quiet. I kept my voice even. "You shoved me next to the kitchen like I was an afterthought. So yes, I made a little adjustment," she hissed. "You're ruining my wedding." I said, "I tried to behave, but you made sure I couldn't." Dan appeared, practiced and camera ready, even exhausted, and stepped between us. "Lower your voice," he said to her. "Everyone's watching." "Good," I said, and walked back to the gift table. I picked up the envelope for the second and final time and slipped it into my purse. I didn't stay for the ceremony. I didn't wave goodbye. I walked out the way I came in, alone, heels ticking like a metronome that finally matched my pulse. A few people clapped, small, scandal-tender claps. One uncle nodded like a verdict. Outside, the air felt real again. The parking lot was just asphalt and wind. The relief wasn't joy, it was oxygen. The next morning was quiet for exactly 6 minutes. I was still in my robe, holding coffee, pretending normal was a thing I could pour, when the doorbell rang. Once, twice. Then the pounding, fist after fist, like the wood had personally wronged them. I didn't flinch. I already knew. When I opened the door, there stood Amanda in a hoodie that wasn't hers, hair still half done, face flushed, and behind her, our mother. In pearls and full makeup, lips pressed into that judgmental little line she thinks makes her look regal. Neither waited to be invited. My mother brushed past me like I was the maid. Amanda followed. I stood there a heartbeat, amazed by the choreography of entitlement this family performs without rehearsal. "Where is it?" Amanda snapped. "Where's the check?" "Good morning to you, too," I said, closing the door, setting my mug down carefully. "You think this is funny?" she shouted. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. You made me look like a beggar. I didn't make you look like anything, I said. You did that all by yourself. My mother turned to me with that cold counsel voice. You don't need the money, Arya. We all know that. You were being spiteful. That was meant for the honeymoon. She's your sister. I laughed once, a sound even I didn't recognize. She's the same sister who put me next to the kitchen like a stray dog. Forgive me if I didn't feel like paying $5,000 for the honor. Amanda pushed down the hallway like she owned the floor plan. Where are you going? I called, following the electricity rising in my chest. To get what I'm owed. You're not owed anything, I said. By the time I reached my bedroom, she had a drawer halfway open. Something in me switched from words to gravity. I grabbed a fistful of her hair and yanked her back. She yelped, and our mother appeared in the doorway, hands up in that theater of shock she's perfected. You're unstable, she said, as if naming it makes it true. Get out of my house, I said, guiding them with force toward the hallway, past the console table where I keep spare keys, past the love seat where Amanda once spilled red wine and blamed me for buying a pale rug. My mother tried to plant herself like a marble statue in a museum you can't touch, but I kept moving them down the corridor, opened the front door, and physically pushed them out. The hell out. The door shut like a verdict. The lock slid like a vow. I stood there breathing, the roar in my ears finally receding. Then I picked up my phone and called Dan. He answered on the second ring, voice cautious, like he already suspected his day had a cliff in it. I need to talk to you, I said. Your fiancé and her mother just broke into my house looking for the check I took back. They tore through my bedroom. I had to physically throw them out. Wait, are you serious? He said. Dead serious, I said. He swore under his breath. I'm sorry. I didn't know they were going to. Well, they did, I said. Talk to them before I involve the police. I will. I swear I'll handle it. After we hung up, the house felt misaligned, like a painting, slightly crooked, that you can't unsee. I made myself another coffee and opened my banking app to distract my hands with anything that wasn't shaking. A new alert popped up. Then another. $12,200 at a boutique in Soho. $600 at a restaurant reservation system. $2,300 at a bridal experience spa. My stomach didn't drop. It tightened, a door hinge going rigid. I checked my purse. My bank card wasn't in its slot. I stared at the timeline, at the geotags. I thought of yesterday. Her hand in my drawer, her mouth saying, owed. I thought of the fact that my PIN was my birth year and how many times she'd laughed about me being too old to act uptight when I wouldn't loan her money, like age itself was a currency flaw. By morning, the total cleared $8,000. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I moved through my house like someone taking inventory after a storm, noting what was missing and what could be nailed down. I froze the card. I called the bank and filed the report. They said investigation and days to weeks, and a police report would help. I wrote down reference numbers while staring at the front door, remembering how easily it swung open when you believe someone won't push past you. When the boutique called hours later and said they were holding merchandise bought with my card, and by the way, the woman who purchased them was next door at the photo studio in a wedding gown, alone, something in me clicked into place the way a lock does after the right key. I thanked the clerk, slid on those quiet heels, and picked up my keys. It was still morning. The light through the windows looked like water. Somewhere in the distance, a siren rose and fell, and in the silence after, the house exhaled. And that, I said to the room, to myself, to the empty air that had once held my mother's perfume, was just the beginning. The boutique sat between two glass towers, like an afterthought of luxury. Velvet curtains, soft jazz, perfume thick as syrup. The woman at the counter recognized me instantly, as if guilt left fingerprints on a last name. You must be Arya, she said, voice dipped in sympathy. We still have your items in the back. She vanished through a curtain and returned with a sleek black shopping bag, tissue paper neatly folded over what used to be my money. She tried to return them, the woman added carefully, said the card was lost and asked for store credit. I signed the acknowledgement and thanked her. That should have been the end of it. But then the clerk said, she's next door, by the way. The photo studio. She's having bridal portraits retaken. For a second, the sentence didn't make sense. Then it did. I turned my head toward the glass wall separating the two shops. And there she was, Amanda, standing under a silver reflector, wearing the gown again, bouquet replaced by a curl of hair between her fingers, eyes hollowed by something even pride couldn't patch. I stood there, the bag biting into my hand, heartbeat steady as steel. I could have walked away, let her live in that sad rerun she called closure, but then she turned, caught my reflection, and froze, and I stepped inside. The photographer blinked in surprise. "Excuse me." "It's fine," I said quietly. Amanda's voice broke. "What are you doing here?" I held up the bag. "You left these behind." Her tone hardened, like wet cement. "I didn't steal from you." "Except you did, and now your name's flagged at 2 boutiques. Fraud report filed. Enjoy that." The photographer backed up slowly, camera dangling. Amanda's chest heaved under layers of silk. "This is my shoot," she said, eyes glittering. "You can't just show up and—" "You can't just break into someone's home," I interrupted. "You can't empty their account and pretend it's a gift." The door behind me opened, and then he was there, Dan. He stopped mid-step, taking in the scene. Amanda in her gown, me holding a bag full of evidence, the air thick with something irreversible. "Arya," he asked quietly. Amanda's voice softened to pleading. "Dan, she's making this worse." He looked at her, then at me, then back. Silence stretched until even the photographer slipped out. Finally, Dan said, "We're done." Amanda blinked, uncomprehending. "What?" "I'm not marrying you. Not after this. Not after what you did. To her, to me, to yourself." She stepped forward, mascara trembling. "You can't do this here." "This," he said, "is the only place that makes sense." Her hands reached for him, but he didn't move. He just walked past her, past me, toward the door. "Let's go, Arya." I followed without a word, the bag still swinging at my side. Through the glass, I saw her reflection watching us leave. Bride without a groom, queen without a crown. We didn't talk that day. Dan dropped me at home and said only, "I'll make sure she returns what she can, Arnaj." I nodded, and that was it. The city was quiet that night, the kind of quiet that hums under streetlights when the world's still deciding what it thinks of you. 3 days passed. No texts, no calls. I started to believe maybe it was over. Maybe humiliation had done what morality never could. I even began to clean, small rituals of control, changing sheets, rearranging drawers, throwing out expired spices. On the morning of the 4th day, I walked into the kitchen, phone in hand, ready for coffee, and stopped. The back door was open, just slightly. A pale line of dawn cut across the tile. My throat closed. I hadn't left it unlocked. Then came the sound, drawers sliding, paper rustling, whispers. I moved down the hall barefoot, heartbeat in my ears, turned the corner, and there they were, Amanda and our mother, again. Amanda had my desk drawer open, rifling through old statements. Mom was in my closet, pulling out boxes. For a moment, I just watched. Their audacity was almost artistic. When Amanda finally turned, she didn't flinch. "Where is it?" she asked. "Where's what?" "You know what we're here for," Mom said, as if that explained anything. I laughed once, sharp. "You already got caught stealing from me, and now you're breaking in again?" "We're not leaving without it," Amanda said, stepping closer. "You're not leaving at all," I snapped. "I'm calling the cops." Mom's tone flipped instantly to pleading. "Don't overreact, Arya. We're family. We just want what belongs to Amanda." "What belongs to Amanda?" I echoed. "The money," she said flatly. "You took it back, but it was a wedding gift. That makes it hers." I stared at her, amazed. "You broke into my house to search for money she already stole and got caught stealing?" Amanda's eyes darted around like she still believed it might be hidden somewhere. She started toward the living room. I didn't think. I moved, grabbed her by the back of the head and yanked her backward. She screamed, papers scattering. Mom lunged. I shoved her back hard enough to hit the wall. "Out," I said. "Out of my house, or I swear this time I'll let them arrest you both." Amanda staggered up, hair wild, face blotched. "You psycho! You've always been jealous of me." I opened the front door and pointed. Neither moved. So I pushed. Amanda first, Mom second, like garbage taken to the curb. The door slammed, the lock clicked, and for a moment, silence held its breath. I called 2 people. First, my father. He answered already weary. I told him everything. His reply, "Don't involve me. I told you from the start I'm not getting in the middle." Of course he did. Then I called Dan. "They broke into my house again," I said. "Looking for the money, Amanda and your ex-future mother-in-law." He swore. "What do you want me to do?" "I don't care what you do, but they're your problem too. And if they show up again, I'm filing a police report." I'll take care of it, he said. But his voice didn't sound like conviction. It sounded like exhaustion. 2 hours later, my phone rang again. Dan, panicked. Check your account, he said. I did, and everything inside me went still. Balance, $0. At first, I thought I'd opened the wrong account. Then I saw the transactions. Designer stores, resort spa, restaurants, all within the last 24 hours. She'd found it, the backup card, the one I kept in my desk for emergencies, my savings. It didn't feel real, just numbers blinking against glass. I called the bank, hands shaking. They froze the account, started another investigation. The woman on the line said quietly, "These were in-person transactions, Ms. Solis. Someone's been using the card continuously since yesterday." Amanda was still out there, still spending, still pretending the world was her mirror and money its reflection. I hung up and texted Dan. No reply. Then I texted his mother. She responded within minutes. "We're handling it. Please don't call the police yet. Give me a day." I didn't want to trust her, but I was tired. Bone deep, hollow tired. I gave her the day. That night, Dan called again. He'd gone to Amanda's apartment. She wouldn't open the door. He heard her laughing with someone, music blasting, like it was still her party. He didn't get to her, but he got to her parents. And his own mother, God help that woman, took charge. She called the boutiques, the resort, the bank. She sent proof of fraud, threatened lawsuits. By the end of the next day, over $7,500 was restored. The rest Dan's parents covered themselves. They didn't ask me for anything. They just said, "It's done. Dan won't be reaching out again." I didn't understand until a week later when a message arrived from him. "She told me if I ever speak to you again, it's over. So this is it. I'm sorry." I stared at it, not because I missed him, but because I realized Amanda still believed she could erase me by cutting everyone off around me. The irony made what happened next so much easier, because when Mom appeared at my door 3 days later, dressed neat as confession, saying she just wanted to talk, I didn't move aside. She apologized for things she didn't name, explained that she only wanted Amanda to be happy, that she thought I was strong enough not to need anyone. I listened, then said, "You don't know me. You never did. You chose her every time." She didn't reply. I closed the door. And this time I locked it. 6 weeks later, the silence still holds. Until one midnight message appears from Sarah B., Amanda's bridesmaid. "You were right about her. She's planning another wedding. Same dress, different guy." Attached was a screenshot. Amanda in her apartment mirror, gown spilling across the floor, captioned, "Second chances are for the strong." No ring, no man, just her and that same haunted smile. I didn't reply. I just turned off the phone and let the quiet stay. 6 weeks of silence sounds peaceful on paper, but peace is rarely silent. It has a hum, a faint tension beneath its stillness, like air holding its breath. I learned to live in that sound, to make coffee without expecting someone to storm in, to check my locks twice instead of 10 times, to look out the window and not flinch when headlights slowed. For a while, that was enough. Until one morning, my phone buzzed with a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but something, curiosity, habit, fate, made me swipe. "Ms. Solis?" a man's voice asked. "This is Daniel Pierce from Hamilton and Roth Law. I represent the Leone family." The name made my heart stumble. Dan's parents. He continued, "We're finalizing a civil resolution regarding funds lost during the wedding incident. You should be receiving a certified transfer today." I stared out my kitchen window at the muted sky. "Why now?" "It's an agreement between parties," he said. "Consider it restitution. Also, Ms. Solis, for your safety, you might want to be aware. Amanda Leone has multiple pending credit applications under a name similar to yours. One flagged your birth year." My pulse went cold. She tried to use my identity? "We're not certain, but it fits the pattern." He offered to email documentation. I said yes, thanked him, and ended the call. For a long time, I just stood there, the phone heavy in my hand, trying to process how theft could evolve into something so casual, how Amanda could keep reaching through invisible wires even after I'd slammed every door. The transfer arrived that afternoon, $1,000 exactly. The note in the memo line read simply, "For what my silence cost you." No name, just digits and the ache of acknowledgement. I didn't know if it came from Dan or his mother, and I didn't care. The amount wasn't what mattered. It was the sentence beneath it, an admission written in currency instead of apology. That night, I pulled out the folder I'd been building quietly since the first invasion. Screenshots, transaction records, photos of my damaged drawers, the boutique receipts, the spa confirmations, the messages from Dan's mother. A thick file of proof that this happened, that I wasn't crazy or bitter, just tired of bleeding quietly. I took it to a small police substation the next morning. The officer was polite, neutral, maybe even gentle. "You have more evidence than most people who walk in," he said, flipping through the folder. "Would you like to press charges?" For a second, the words echoed like they belonged to someone else's life. I pictured Amanda's face at the studio, the fragile defiance, the tears she saved for effect. I pictured Mom's voice, all careful regret and practiced sorrow. I took a breath. "Yes," I said, "file it." He nodded, typed steadily, and when he handed me the case number, I felt something uncoil inside me. Not revenge, not triumph, just weight leaving bone. Afterward, I walked along the river downtown, the water reflecting the bruised sky. Couples passed, holding hands, laughing at things that didn't matter. I envied them, not for their joy, but for their ignorance of how quickly love can turn into liability. At a cafe near the bridge, I sat with a latte and my thoughts. That's when an older woman approached, hesitating at my table. "You don't know me," she said, "but I think I know your sister." I stiffened. "Amanda?" She nodded, nervous. "She applied for a position at my company last week, used a reference under your name, said you could vouch for her." I let out a slow breath that almost became a laugh. "Of course she did." The woman grimaced. "I'm sorry. It didn't check out. I just wanted you to be aware." "Thank you," I said. "You did the right thing." When she left, I sat for a long time, watching the river move, realizing Amanda's life was now a loop, repeating, recasting, rehearsing versions of herself that could survive in new mirrors, but I didn't have to stand in any of them. A week later, I got another letter, this time from the bank. They'd completed the investigation and permanently blacklisted both Amanda and my mother from any account linked to my data. Fraud confirmed. Case closed. The clerk's note at the bottom was almost kind. "Please consider updating your birth year PIN." I smiled for the first time in months. That night, I changed every password, updated every code, replaced every lock again. But this time it wasn't fear. It was ceremony. I was closing doors not out of panic, but choice. Then I did something I hadn't dared since the wedding. I invited people over, not family, friends, the ones who'd clapped that day when I walked out. We cooked cheap pasta, drank boxed wine, laughed too loud. Someone asked, "Do you ever miss them?" I paused, thought of my mother's voice, Amanda's smirk, the sound of my own heartbeat when the door slammed that first time. "I miss who I thought they could be," I said, "but not who they are." Months pass quietly now, seasons turning in subtle ways, longer mornings, softer evenings, sunlight crawling across my floor at angles I hadn't noticed before. Sometimes I still check my phone expecting chaos, then smile when there's nothing. The human heart, I've learned, recalibrates faster than we think. It doesn't forget, but it finds rhythm again. I see Amanda's reflection sometimes, digitally, secondhand. A tagged photo at a new rooftop bar, a caption that reads, "Starting over." Maybe she is, or maybe she's just building another illusion. Either way, I don't follow. I scroll past. Because closure isn't confrontation. It's distance maintained without bitterness. Yesterday, I received one final message from an unknown number. No words, just an image. A photo of our old family home, sold sign planted in the lawn. The house where Mom once said, "Be grateful you're even here." I don't know who sent it. Maybe a neighbor, maybe fate. But I stared at it and felt something settle. The house was gone. The dynasty of guilt and hierarchy dissolved. I whispered, "Good," and deleted the photo. Then I stood by the window, morning light washing the walls, and realized the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was mine. The peace I'd been waiting for didn't arrive like a gift. I built it, brick by boundary, lock by lock. And when I finally exhaled, the sound was louder than any apology they never said.